In the exercise you just completed, you may have had some difficulty sorting out the difference between what you know and what the students already know. Fortunately, fortunately we always know some of the same things. But there's more to it than just starting with the familiar. You have to connect it to what they know and eventually to what you want them to know. This connection is deeper than just awareness. It's a connection to what they know, but also to what you taught them before and to what you will teach them next. In this class, we've talked about the teacher being passionate and prepared. We also talked about the learner attending to the lesson and the teacher using language they understand. These points lead us to this one, and that makes sense. Basically, we've been making the case that you have to know the material and you have to know the student. We start with what they know and lead them step by step to what we want them to understand. Take the Isaiah passage, for example, in chapter 6. If we just did chapter 5, we connect this lesson to that one. Our pastor spends a lot of time doing this in the Romans series, for example. Maybe our topic is worship, and Isaiah 6 is just the text we chose. We still have to connect the dots. I mean, why this topic? Why this text? And then we connect each point we make to the one we just made as clearly and simply as possible, making sure that they get it before we move on. This is one of the problems I think sometimes we have in public schools, where students are at lots of different levels and the teacher's almost forced by the curriculum to move forward when some of these students have not yet understood the concepts that they need to understand to get the material that's coming. We should take more time. We should slow down. We should ask more questions. We should try to figure out where they are and keep moving them more and more to a better understanding of the points that are coming. So, I use the Roman example because it was familiar to you, and we need to use the most familiar examples we can, but you know what's even better is to let them provide the examples. I mean, what examples can you give of how you've learned? Who taught you how to hit a baseball or ride a bike? How did they do it? Who was it that discipled you in the faith? Very likely the person took you through some series of steps that were related to each other, pointing you to things or people you were already familiar with so that you could understand. The series of steps requires a clear understanding of the previous one before we really grasp the next one. We have to pedal and steer before we take off the training wheels. As we become comfortable with one idea, we can use it to discover something new and important about another idea. We can answer questions and solve problems. This is where we end up, questions and problems the students can now tackle. The kid who can ride her bicycle down the driveway without training wheels becomes the kid who can ride her bike around the block. Jesus did a lot of this. The parables always started with things that were familiar to the audience and then led them through a series of questions and understandings to some new truth that they could apply to their life. You know, what we really want is for students to think and act on their own. This means the questions and the problems have to be questions and problems that seem real to them and important to them. You spent a few minutes earlier thinking about worship at 18-year-olds, and you thought about Uriah and Isaiah a little bit too. But I expect you spent most of your time thinking about how to start and not how to finish. So let's take a few minutes to do this. Where do you want to end up? Think about it this way. What is the question or problem the student should now resolve? What understanding of worship can he or she now apply? What do you want them to understand and do? And why does it matter to them? Too often we expect students to learn something for which they're not prepared and to see connections they can't understand. They're bored and we're frustrated because they don't have the facts or the definitions they need, but worse, they have no motivation because we are providing answers to questions they don't yet know how to ask. So take a few minutes and do this as individuals, not in a group this time. Look at the opening verses of Isaiah 6 and decide what's the point you would want to make. You can use the 18-year-olds from earlier or pick a different age group. And then make a brief 3 or 4 point outline that gets you there. Finally, think about how you will know if you got them there. What questions might you ask? What problems might you want them to be able to solve? I look forward to hearing what you come up with. I should be there after dinner.